Hey everyone, quick bit of breaking news before we talk about the Space News Update. NASA announced this morning that the Starliner capsule will return to Earth without crew on board, and Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams will remain aboard the ISS until February, then return home on a Crew Dragon capsule. Not an ideal outcome, but as always, crew safety is NASA's primary concern here. In this week's daily 60-second space news updates, we talked about everything from exploding rocket engines to sunspots, oceans of molten lava on the moon, and not one but two citizen science projects that anyone can get involved with. Enjoy this edit of all the stories, and please like the video and share it so we can spread the space science love. August 19th. I love citizen science projects, and there's a cool new one from the Dutch Black Hole Consortium. The consortium is looking for kilonovas, which are the result of a neutron star and a black hole merger that can itself result in a stellar mass black hole. The problem is to distinguish between real events in their images and false ones caused by a range of possible effects. We've talked before about how much better humans are than algorithms at pattern recognition, which is the basis for those annoying captchas, but also the basis for this project. Download the app and it will teach you everything you need to know to distinguish between real and false sources, then classify actual images and get involved with scientific research into black holes. The app is available on Android, iOS, and the web. By the time you see this video, August blue supermoon should be up in the sky. A blue moon in this case is the third full moon in a season with 4 full moons, and the supermoon part means the full moon is within 90% of its closest distance to Earth on its elliptical orbit. It should look spectacular, so don't forget to look up. A rocket engine exploded yesterday while being tested at Britain's Saxavord spaceport in the far north of Scotland. Nobody was hurt, the facility didn't sustain any damage. The rocket was being tested by German company Rocket Factory Augsburg, who are hoping to launch the UK's first vertical rocket into orbit later in 2024. Saxavord is Europe's first fully licensed vertical launch facility, with the UK authorities signing off on up to 30 launches a year. UK's other launch facility, Spaceport Cornwall, uses aircraft to launch rockets horizontally. With the huge current interest in exploring space, there are multiple other launch facilities under construction or awaiting licenses across the UK, Europe, and the rest of the world. New computer simulations might give us clues as to how the giant planets in our solar system and elsewhere formed. We have a good understanding of how the rocky inner planets form, but our models for gas and ice giant planetary formation have a lot of gaps in them. There's a cool article over at space.com describing the new findings, and the paper is published in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics. As you probably know by now, the sun has been very active recently, giving beautiful auroral displays and very high sunspot counts as it approaches the maximum of its 11-year solar cycle. Recording and measuring sunspots is a key aspect of monitoring activity inside the sun, and such records have been kept since as early as 165 BCE. A famous break in the regular sunspot cycle occurred between about 1645 and 1715 CE, called the Maunder Minimum, when very few sunspots were observed. Nothing like the Maunder Minimum has been observed since, but now new research published in the Astrophysical Journal suggests that the transition out of this quiet period for the sun was much less abrupt than previously thought, with astronomers at the time possibly confusing the counting of groups of sunspots with individual sunspots in their written records. Whilst this might seem like an unimportant clarification, models of the sun do try to reproduce such intermittent quiet periods, so getting the details right is critical to improve our understanding of our nearest star. India's Chandrayaan-3 mission was hugely successful and put the Vikram lander on the lunar surface back in August of last year. The Pragyan rover was then deployed from Vikram and explored the area around a landing site that was the furthest south a lander had ever been on the moon. New results show the Pragyan found the lunar soil in the area was relatively uniform and made up of a white rock called Ferroan anorthosite. This chemical composition is broadly similar to two other equatorial regions where samples were returned to Earth in 1972 by NASA's Apollo 16 and by the Luna 20 mission from the Soviet Union. The similarity between all the samples gives strong support to the theory that the surface of the moon was once covered in an ocean of liquid magma. These direct samples agree with orbital measurements made by Chandrayaan-1 and 2. There were surprises in the samples. For example, more magnesium and other minerals were present than predicted for the lunar crust. There are still many mysteries to be solved, and there's a great article with more details on the results and the current state of our lunar models over at The Conversation. There's a cool article over at phys.org on research at New York University into materials including plastics, rubbers, synthetics, and even Martian soil that are able to effectively protect astronauts from the harmful radiation from space. This research will be useful in designing spacesuits and habitats for the future exploration of Mars. The Kilonova Seeker citizen science project led by the University of Portsmouth in the UK has already identified 20 new discoveries, including 5 Type 1a supernovae, in its first year of operation. Check out the link in the description for the details and also to find out how you can get involved. Tomorrow, Saturday, August the 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, NASA will hold a press conference to update the status of its crew flight test. Hopefully this will be the update that tells us when Starliner will return and whether it will have astronauts aboard or if they'll be staying on the ISS until February.